And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us. And one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it. And that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon Wright. Tonight's episode, we're going to be joined by Shawn Grimm. Shawn is the host of the Big Grimmbowski podcast. His podcast is kind of similar to what I do here at Tinfoil Tales. But Shawn's reached out to me recently with a couple of encounters that he's had. He wanted to come on here and share it with us. But before we bring Shawn on, if you've ever had an experience and you'd like to be on Tinfoil Tales, you can send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to the website at Tinfoil Tales Podcast, or you can go to the website, tinfoiltales.com, and go to the contact section. Either way works for me. Just shoot me a message and we'll get something scheduled. If you want to help the podcast, you can continue to share it around. That is the best way to help. Word of mouth and exposure to the podcast is what helps continue it to grow. You can also leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts at. That helps with the rankings, makes it more visible. When the podcast is more visible, there's more chances that someone's going to listen and have an experience they want to share too. So it helps with bringing on new guests for new episodes. Follow us on all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, X. There's now a TikTok and a Threads, so you can follow us on there as well if that's something you're into. Make sure to check out the Patreon. You get early access to all the episodes, plus ad-free content. There will be some bonus episodes on there as well, plus some videos. It's only $1.99 a month, so if you want to become a foil fanatic and help the podcast, I definitely appreciate it. I think now we're going to go ahead and bring Shawn on. I've been looking forward to talking with him, so I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'd like to take this time to welcome my guest tonight, Shawn. Thanks for coming on here and talking with me.
Hey, no problem, dude.
We, for the audience out there, kind of know each other outside of podcasting. We all kind of live in the same area too, so it's a little podunk area of Indiana, but I've known of Shawn for the last 10 or 15 years for band-related stuff.
Yeah, dude. The good old scene days.
Yeah. Those were better times, I feel like, at least back in those days. People actually cared about the music, I think. Nowadays, it doesn't seem to be that way.
No, not at all. Who did you play with again? I'm trying to remember. I've been trying to remember, but I keep forgetting.
I was in To My Dismay.
Yes, that's right. To My Dismay.
Yeah.
Damn, that brings back some fucking memories right there, dude. Like, I was in with Wolves at Our Heels out of Kokomo for quite a while too, and yeah, just oh man, almost every show, dude. I'm pretty sure that I still have. Okay, so like, remember the little clip-on like band entry things that everybody would get before you would play like a show, like oh man, I still got some of those things.
Yeah,
not the bracelets, but like the little plaque sticking it in, and they would say like band member, and so like all the people like at the door would like know that they just like let you on in.
Yeah,
dude, I'm gonna have to find that. I'm gonna take a picture of it and send it to you, because I know I have like 3 of those, and it says To My Dismay on every single one. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't remember any of those, but we never had them, and someone else may have had them, but I don't remember ever having them. If we did, news to me.
It was all Kokomo shows, though. I remember it was at the event center there off of 31.
Yeah, I know where you're talking about. I know the guy that done that was that Nate guy. So yeah, he might have had that on there, but again, We never did it. It was just like we're just playing a local show. Why the hell we need these? We're not on tour or anything.
Right. I gotta say that one of those I'm pretty stoked to have because the headlining band was Kubla Khan.
Yeah, I don't think it was. We played that one. So I don't remember ever playing with them.
Okay, so that then maybe not. I know the other two definitely were to my dismay. But yeah, they were just like, yeah, that Nate dude. I can't remember what his name was.
Nate Turley.
Yeah, that's it. Damn, I'm feeling old now,
And it's been like 15 years.
man. Dude, it has. Absolutely has, bro.
Yeah. But no, you reached out to me a while back, and I've been so booked up with doing 2 to 3 interviews a week. It's hard to get everything scheduled. Now I got the other podcast going back on too, so it's trying to juggle with that. So it's hard to get things going, but here we are.
Right, but you've been killing it, dude. You've been killing it, and I gotta say, like, for the podcasting game, it's definitely not easy. You got to put so much work into it and stuff when you want to make it real good, real professional sounding, like just really good quality altogether. There's so much to it, and like there's such a learning curve, especially like when you start out and you really have no idea like kind of what you're doing, because like I had no clue what the hell I was doing. It took me a minute to really like figure it out and everything, but like now I'm kind of like to that point where I'm just like, I'm Gucci now. Like I got it down. I got my rhythm. I know how I'm doing it. I know how I edit everything, and now it's all. And I remember like the first like 8 episodes that I did, I was just like, this, I don't know what I'm doing. And it was like number 9. I finally was like, okay, I'm getting my first guest on. I had the Cold Conspiracy come on, which was pretty sick. And I doubt that my computer didn't even allow me to record through Zoom at all. So I was just like, what the heck? I was so worked up and so pissed. And so they, luckily enough, they were nice enough. They're like, hey, we'll record it on our end, send you the audio file. No worries, dude. And I was like, sick. And then like, after that, I figure everything out and go from there.
Yeah, I'm used to Zoom for work purposes, so I was already kind of familiar with it. And I've been trying out StreamYard here and there, but I don't really like the quality of the audio from StreamYard. It's strange, but like I can hear myself breathing and I can hear other people breathing, and for me it's like an OCD thing. I was like, I don't want to hear myself breathing. And for some reason,
right,
I don't hear it on Zoom. So Zoom must like filter that out somehow. I don't know.
And then I've also noticed that anybody who is going from between Zoom and StreamYard, because I went on Deplorable Nation with Deplorable Janet here a couple weeks back, and she does everything on StreamYard. And when I went to go do it, like pretty much all my settings and stuff they got completely screwed up on my computer. All my audio stuff, I had to go back in and rechange everything just to be hear her, for her to hear me. I don't know what it is, but StreamYard and Zoom, they hate each other. Absolutely hate each other.
For whatever reason, I can make anyone that I record on Zoom sound somewhat decent, and then when I go to other people's shows and they have me on StreamYard, they always sound great, but I always sound like crap. So it's like, I don't know, because I don't adjust my settings on my end because everything sounds good on how I record myself. So I don't know what's going on, but the few people that I've went on their shows to and they use StreamYard always sound like shit. I'm like, whatever.
Right. Yeah, and you got all the people. I mean, you get all conspiracy with it. The amount of people are just like, well, we're not going to use Zoom because they're going to take our voice and they're going to use it for AI.
Oh, well, I embrace the AI overlords anyways. I mean, it is what it is. They're going to take over. They're going to take over.
Right, exactly.
But no, what's the name of your podcast for anyone listening?
The Big Grimmbowski podcast. You can find that on Spotify, pretty much everywhere besides Apple Podcasts, just because I've been having issues with Apple Connect. I'm pretty sure it's just coming down to like an email thing to where if I try to log in with one email on it, it works. But if I try to log in with a different email, it won't work, and it won't allow me to connect to anything. So it's been a huge pain in the ass, but I mean, it's all there. There's also a Rumble account. You can find like the videos and stuff. I'm slowly putting them up when I have the time to. I've been working so much that I haven't had the time to sit down and put everything up. So I've only got like a few of them on there for now, but they're there. You know, got the TikToks, the Insta, X, all the different forms so far. Just trying to stay social media friendly for everybody out there. But yeah, the Big Grimmbowski podcast. Come find me, y'all.
Basically, anywhere where you listen to Tinfoil Tales, you guys can find Shawn's podcast, the Big Grimmbowski podcast, and except for Apple. But I will include links in the show notes for anyone interested. His show is very similar to what I'm doing here. Same type of topics and everything else. So if you guys are enjoying Tinfoil Tales, you'll probably enjoy Shawn's show. But you reached out to me, I think back in like November. Dude. You said you had some weird experience or whatever. You want to talk about that?
So I've had several. So like, first of all, like I've been a paranormal investigator for a long time. I was with a group in Wabash for a while. We did that for several years. We kind of ended up disbanding after a while. I think just too many people's personal lives just kind of just got in the way of being able to go out and do it. So like we kind of, you know, stopped doing that, whatnot. I had some really crazy, strange encounters doing that stuff. But some of the shows that I've been coming on to tell some stories about is I had a encounter here just outside of LaFountain, Indiana, which that's where I currently live. And it was over at the 1812 Battleground. And at the time, I wasn't really too sure as to what I was seeing, but I later on ended up finding it out, and so I'm just going to jump right into it because it's just like it's one of those stories like I can't like like tiptoe around it without just like going into it. So I'm just gonna tell you
that Battleground I've mentioned a couple times on here before because we have a couple episodes we talked about puck wedgies, and when I was in school, people called that Battleground where they did the reenactment and everything Hobbit Land.
Yep.
Because people had seen like little small humanoids running around out there and everything, so they called them hobbits. And then now I've found out more into the lore, digging into shit, and it seems they fall more into the whole puck wedgie thing rather than hobbit.
Okay, I don't think I've ever heard of that term. If you could, just give me a quick little rundown on what one of those is.
They're basically small little, and I don't know if they're spirits themselves, but they're small, mischievous little things that could be spirits, it could be fae. They're small humanoid type creatures. And they're more prevalent up in like the Bridgewater Triangle area, like the Huggamuck Swamp and stuff like that. There's an episode, okay. By the time this airs, the episode will already be out, but as we're talking, I think it comes out next Tuesday. So there'll be an episode out there about I think it's called Puck Wedgies of the Bridgewater Triangle, actually. But the guy,
yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out.
The guy that I interviewed talked quite a bit about him. So,
dude, hell yeah. So the thing that I saw out there wasn't small by any means, and so I was 16 years old. I was going out and I had a little 7 Chevy S10 short bed. I couldn't really fit a whole lot in there, but you bet I packed about 6 or 7 friends in that thing. We all got flashlights and stuff, and we went out to Hobbit Land. We went in through the back way where most people who are leaving the reenactment, well, that's where they leave through. And there's that little bridge over there that everybody calls the Hobbit Bridge. So like we were coming across the Hobbit Bridge first, and that's a pretty straightaway gravel road, trees on both sides, And it's definitely one of those roads, very similar if you're going out to Okefenokee, where once you start getting in there, it's like the trees and stuff kind of start getting closer and closer to you. And it just seems like everything's getting, more closer in. And you're just like, this is mass or something. So we were not walking, we were driving, and it was just me and my other buddy in the cab of the truck. And we were doing like engine idle, dude. Like we were coasting. Like I didn't even have my foot on the gas. Like we're just kind of looking around, because that's what we did. You go out there and get scared as teachers and stuff once you're able to drive. There's that, old schoolhouse that has the cemetery behind it. I've had weird experiences out there. I mean, I just had so many strange things happen just in that place alone. So it's funny that once I started podcasting and I started talking about this to a lot of people, I actually was on a podcast, and you can go to my show and you can find it. It's one of the more recent ones that I had done. It's in the one of the episode 20 somethings or another. But I actually was doing it in the car because I had my kids with me and stuff, and they were in bed and everything. So I was like, well, I'm only 5 minutes away, guys. If I can go to this location and like I can literally show you guys like mid pod where I was, what I was talking about, like when this thing happened, and that's what I did. I drove right over there real quick because I was sitting in the car because I couldn't be on my in the studio because my it doubles as my son's bedroom, and I'm out there and I'm showing thing, and like it was awesome. But I'm going down this road, and about 60 to 70 yards out in front of me, I see this very, very tall humanoid that steps out from the right hand side and takes one step and is now in the center of the road, turns towards us, looks down at us, and then turns right back and steps into the woods again. And I immediately freaked out, and I'm just like, dude, what was that? And my buddy's like, I didn't see anything, man. What did you see? And I'm freaking out. I'm like rolling my window up and everything because this thing was abnormally tall. And I'm talking like at least 8 feet tall, at least. And I knew that there was some things off about this that just was just kind of like, the uncanny valley. Like, that there was something extremely wrong with this situation. So the height being one thing, but then another thing was that there was no distinctive clothing. And, people go out there, they fish and stuff at night, this and that, but like there was nobody. We were alone out there, and there's not houses that are in walking distance. There were, especially that part of 1812 that you could get to. So there was no trucks, there was no cars, like nothing, no one was out there. But this thing was a solid shade of brown, no clothing. There was nothing like facial feature wise I could be like, oh yeah, that's just a dude, that's a regular ass dude. Like, no, there was nothing. And it was so lanky and kind of like, it was like skinny too. And I didn't know what I saw, and it freaked me out and everything. I didn't tell anybody besides my buddy Shane that was in the car with me. And so he ended up leaving and we were gone. And that was the only time I had this experience out there. And it probably wasn't until about 9 to 10 years later when I'm in the paranormal investing group. We would do these events called Dining with Ghosts. You could buy a ticket, and we would, meet up at a location where they're having reported activity, and you would get to go on a paranormal investigation with us and see like how that works, and just like the TV shows, Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures and all that stuff, pulling out your K2 meters and setting X cameras and all the jazz. So like it was a super fun time. But we had catered meals, and we would also have somebody come in and talk. And so we had a local historian from Wabash come in and do a spiel, and his name was Ron Woodward. He used to be a teacher. I think he was his teacher, in fact, for Wabash High School back in the day. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, my parents remember him being a teacher. I know, like, a lot of my friends' parents definitely remember him being a teacher. Like, and the awesome thing is, dude is still around and everything. He's still kicking it. And I hope that to get him on the show, and we can actually sit down and talk about some of these different kinds of local lores and stuff, because this dude is so knowledgeable. And so he's doing his spiel, and he's talking about different things around, like, the counties and stuff. And then he starts bringing up Bigfoot. And he was like, surprisingly enough, there have been tons of Bigfoot sightings in this area for years. And you can look it up. You can even find the old, like, records and stuff where people are back as far as, like, the 60s and 70s were reporting Bigfoot sightings out there along the river and stuff. And at that point, I was like, holy crap, I had a Bigfoot sighting. What I saw was Bigfoot. I didn't think about that, when I first saw this thing. Like, that wasn't going through my head, like, you just saw Bigfoot, bro. Like, no, So now I'm just like, having this information and realizing what it was, everything made so much more sense at that point in time. And I'm just like, whoa. And since then, I started, looking into these different stories of Bigfoot sightings. A lot of people between the Mississinawa Reservoir and the Salamone Reservoir who have had these very, very similar Bigfoot sightings, where they would see this. There would always be that very, very pungent smell that comes with it. This, smells just absolutely gross. People having objects thrown at their tents. I think that there's even a report where something, like, came up and, like, was, like, grabbed their tent and, like, was started, like, shaking it real bad. Just all these crazy things. And I'm just like, well, okay, all right. So we got this going out here now. We have all these different kinds of paranormal things going on out here. Oh, like you said, we get the hobbits, and, whether or not these are spirits or fae folk or whatever they are, out there. And it makes sense that you would have so much activity going on in a location such as this, where you had so much loss of life and so many people who were killed in battle and stuff, and all that residual stuff, that's still there. That hasn't gone anywhere. I mean, we know that from, going to school in science. Energy can't be created nor destroyed. It can only be transferred between one thing to another. So it's there. And it's, this energy is going to cause manifestations. And I know there's a lot of people who believe that the Bigfoot, it has that capability to kind of switch between, dimensions or, frequencies, or however you want to look at it. So I'm just, like, completely blown away by this. And I love talking about it with people. And I really would like to talk to other people who have had the similar experiences from this area, just to see, like, what the general consensus was, what everybody else can think. So that was, like, a big thing that happened to me at the age of 16. Also at the age of 16, I saw a full body apparition in my bedroom. And that was a pretty crazy thing as well. So it's just like, there's so many things going on, man. And it's like what causes this? Like, what's your thoughts on, like, what's your Bigfoot thoughts, bro?
When it comes to Bigfoot, I thought it's strange anymore. I remember back in, like, the 90s, and obviously it was still a joke to most people, but Bigfoot was just a wild animal, an undiscovered primate. It was just some monkey man running out in the woods, and that was it. Well, now here we are in 2024, and there's a lot more woo side to Bigfoot than what there used to be. There's still a diehard, oh, it's just an undiscovered ape. But there's also a lot of reports that if it's an ape, it's a very strange ape, because even Les Stroud, Survivor Man, has talked about how this thing has talked to him telepathically. Like, I don't know of any apes that communicate using mind speak, is what they call it. And then you chase footprints, and then they just stop. They vanish. I recently talked to someone, so that's because they think they jump up into the trees. Well, that's plausible, I guess. If they're a primate, I guess they could jump up there. But if it's a 10-foot tall, 800-pound monkey man, you're going to hear it go up in a tree, you would think. It's got to be a pretty strong tree.
Right, or at least be able to see it. I mean, regardless
Yeah.
of how high the tree is, you're going to be able to see if there's a big blob up in that tree.
Yeah. And then people report seeing orbs and the UFOs and the whole interdimensional aspect anymore. Like the interdimensional thing is new towards this whole phenomena, not just with Bigfoot, but anything in general anymore that seems to be like a cryptid or spirit realms to anything. Like people are saying that, and I actually do kind of lean this way spirit wise. If you have a spirit and they're not from here, I've often wondered maybe the things that people are saying are hauntings, like they see people, they see these shadow people, maybe they're from a different dimension that we can't fully see and they're somehow bleeding into ours. To me, that would make sense because I'm pretty sure Einstein discovered, or mathematically, they say that there's what, 9, 10 dimensions supposedly. I know
Yeah,
the mathematics works it out that way. So what if something is from a different dimension bleeding into ours? I mean, who knows? Just one of my theories and don't mean anything. But when it comes to Bigfoot or a dog man or any type of weird things, and even within the last like couple weeks, interdimensional is really being pushed because of the whole UFO UAP thing. Like Congress was calling them interdimensional. Like I forget what the lady's name is, but she's one of the ones pushing for this disclosure thing. She mentioned interdimensional. So it's kind of strange that this term is now being pushed out there for some reason. But
right.
clearly people are seeing something.
I'm trying to think of this this other guy. He's based out of Louisiana. I always mix up whether his first name is Steve or Scott, but his last name is Pace. And he started going out to the bayou pretty much, and he stumbled across Bigfoot. And thing is, and I'm so glad you said Dogman, because that's what kind of reminded me of all this. So he has been having these experiences with not only Bigfoot but Dogman as well, and he has been communicating with them telepathically, the same like you had just stated, and he's getting lots of response, and like he's going on podcasts and kind of telling these things, and like this dude is super Christian and this and that, and like he started going out and started singing hymns, like you would in church. And when he started doing that, he started getting responses and stuff in the woods, and that's when he started getting these telepathic messages stating to him like, yes, I am Bigfoot, and I'm here, but also Dogman is here with me as well. And he doesn't get a good feeling about the Dogman. He believes that they're kind of more on the not so good, the more nefarious side of things, but they also are a little bit more subservient to the Bigfoot. So like if Bigfoot says, you're going to leave these dudes alone out in the woods, then it's going to leave you alone. But if they're not Bigfoot around, Dogman might actually try to mess with you and try to either scare you, chase you, whatever it is. And he's like, I don't get good vibes around. I don't get good vibes when like he's there. But as long as the Bigfoot that I've been talking to I feel safe. And he was also kind of stating that because they are interdimensional, they are around us more often than what we know. and he was told by them that they bring their offspring to our homes and let them live inside of our houses and stuff, invisible to us, obviously, and they stay out of the way. If one was in the hallway and we're walking in the hallway, they're not going to stay in the hallway. They're going to move out of the way as to not be detected. But supposedly, this is for them to be able to see hounds act and are able to basically learn from us how to avoid us and how to be away, to stay away from us because of how we as humans act overall. And I mean, most of us can agree that most humans aren't always the best of people, and not everybody is kind-hearted and loving towards other things, especially stuff that we don't understand. I mean, I feel like, that same thing kind of ties in with aliens stuff as well. Like, if those are real, they probably don't want to come down and try to have a conversation with us over anything, because if that conversation with us, most people are going to freak out because this is in front of them. And what do we, do to most things that we don't understand? We try to destroy it. That's just how our nature is. We try to just, completely obliterate what we're afraid of. And so they're able to be in our homes and, learn from it that way. So I think that's pretty interesting topic to think about as well.
I think there's all sorts of things that we can't see with our naked eye because obviously we only see in a certain color spectrum.
Right.
Even with ghost hunting, they use full spectrum cameras sometimes, and you pick up things that you can't see. Like, we can't see it, but clearly there's things there. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Dogman or Bigfoot or whatever living in houses with you, but I do believe there are energies, some negative, some maybe not negative, but not so much great, like neutral energies that are floating around. And
yeah,
I don't know if there's anything we can and can't do about it, because again, half the time no one even knows about it. So I could see it being plausible that something like that's possible, because maybe things like that, when people think they're seeing hauntings or seeing things like that, again, like what I mentioned earlier, like maybe it's something else. Maybe it's
right.
These creatures from a different dimension. Who knows?
And I have a perfect example of that. So in my paranormal group, we had a investigation in a small town. I don't name town usually, just because the fact that the people who do own this building do not like to advertise that there are strange things that go on in this building. But it is the only 3-story building in this town, and it's a very, very small local town, and it's not far from us. I'll tell you what, one off pod, but we were recording, and we had a camera set up in this room, and it was running on infrared because we were in the dark, and obviously you're not going to be able to see if it was regular camera, so it had to be IR. And we recorded all through the night, didn't really catch anything. And then right in, probably within, I want to say we were probably 2 minutes before hitting the stop button when we had caught on camera this light anomaly that obviously it wasn't any of us. This was up on the 3rd floor. We were all down on the ground level at this time, tearing down everything else. And this was like in review when we were able to find it. So there was a light. Okay, so first of all, the camera, like I said, is kind of in like a closet kind of room. It's very, very big. It's very long. We had it at one end in the corner, and it was pointed to where you could see through the door into the hallway on the outside of it that goes into this ballroom. And this light anomaly was about the size of a football, maybe bigger, extremely bright, and it shot down the hallway. And once it got to the ballroom, it did a 90-degree turn to the right. And then a few seconds later, it comes back into frame, another 90 degrees, and then back down the hallway again. So while we were sitting there at this Sodonis investigation, we were seeing a lot of shadow people kind of off to the sides of rooms, not wanting to come close to us. And from our understanding from other investigators and groups that had been there over the years, there was a really big group that was based out of, I think, Indianapolis or something. I can't remember what their names were. They had like a van, those lights, and like the whole 9 yards. Like they were pretty big during that time frame. That was like 11 years ago. I really wish I could remember what their names were. But they went there quite often, so they had a lot of, they would always get things happening when they were there. But we were a newer group, and so we believe that they didn't want to really interact with us because they didn't know who we were, which is honestly not uncommon when you're investigating different places, especially like if you continuously investigate like the same places over and over and over again. Whatever's there starts getting familiar with you and is more likely to interact. So we were all just kind of like, completely dumbfounded on what this was. There was nothing else that could have caused it. We tried to debunk it several different ways. We couldn't. We thought at first maybe it had something to do with, maybe light from a car driving past. But, when you start watching it, the video from earlier, you watch several cars drive past and none of them created this light enough. None at all. And like I said, this thing was moving real fast. So we slowed it down to 32 frames per second. And at that point in time, it was only on 3 frames out of 32. So that was pretty quick. And we're like, okay, that's strange. Let's drop it down even further. So we drop it down to 64 frames per second. And again, we only caught this on 3 frames out of 64. And that right there just says that this thing was moving at an incredible rate of speed, which is what I think about. And again, like I said, there's not anything that we could come up with that would explain why this light anomaly happened, but it was there. We couldn't see it with our own eyes, and I guarantee you, we would have been sitting up there, we probably wouldn't have even seen it with our own eyes. It's just the fact that we were using IR, and it was able to catch it. So, there's all these different, light spectrums that we as humans just can't see. So if there are spectrums of light that we can't see, why wouldn't there be other types of dimensions and all these other different things that now is really coming big and it's really in the limelight? And honestly, I kind of feel like, when we were growing up, like in the 90s and stuff, like the people who did have these encounters, they didn't talk about it. Everybody was too scared to talk about that kind of stuff because like it made people think, no, they're crazy. Like, they're off their rocker. They do a lot of drugs, they're just taking acid all the time. They're just seeing weird stuff, whatever it is. It's like, I don't think that was ever the case, but now we're just kind of more open to it. And I think that maybe it's just because like our generation is kind of hearing all these things for so long and just been like so curious that now we're like, well, we're going to go find out what this stuff is for ourselves. And since we're finding out for ourselves what it is and we're starting to discover it more, that we're open to talking about it and being like, yeah, there's something up here. Do we know what it is? No, but there's something clearly going on. You know what I'm saying?
I think like when you mentioned the 90s and everything else, that stigma, I think the stigma is fading because of social media. More people are able to communicate more than what we could, obviously, in growing up in the 90s and early 2000s. There wasn't there wasn't the way of actually getting it out there. Obviously, with the rise of the internet and obviously people on Facebook and whatever else, it's made it a lot easier for people to communicate and find others that had it. So that stigma is slowly starting to fade. But no, I agree. Back in those days, anyone that brought up anything was crazy. I never even talked about what happened to me because of that exact reason. Because you go tell someone you've seen a upright walking dog, they're gonna think you're a freaking lunatic.
Right. Exactly. And I think that when we were talking, we also share a type of sighting of something that was very, very similar. Also, in a very, very similar location relative to the globe. We're just one county over here in Miami. I'm in in Wabash, and we both have seen something that's very, very similar. And I remember telling you about like the morning that it had happened. I was on my way to work, and it was seeing that thing that had ran out from the side of the road that was just it had very sporadic movement and was kind of like a running, wacky, wavy, inflatable arm flailing tube man.
Yeah.
And every morning since I had this happen, I look for it every single day. I look at the location. I've been judging the distance, how far it had traveled, the terrain around, and none of it makes any sense to me, dude. It makes no sense whatsoever, because the area from where I first saw this thing to where I last saw this thing it was probably close to like an 80-yard jump, and it would have had to cross a creek with a bunch of overgrowth on both sides of the creek, and it's not like it was like a shallow creek. It's kind of like a deep, like ravine kind of creek too. So it's not like you would have just been able to walk through it and stuff. And then when I got close enough to it when I was driving, it all just phased out from my eyes. It just completely went away. And I've been racking my brain around this since then. And I still don't know. And that's like one of the things that I've been super looking forward to talking to you about, is what your overall thoughts on what this thing is.
If it's anything like what I saw, how you described it, the same wavy, wacky arm tube man thing, it looked very glitchy, as in it didn't look like it was from here. Like it almost looked, I don't want to say pixelated or anything like that, because obviously what I saw was more like a big, thick, an actual shadow, but it wasn't a shadow, like it was a thing. Some people think it was Bigfoot. I don't know what it was, but to me, the movement of it did not seem natural. So the way you're describing, if it's similar to that, I almost feel like it's something phasing in and out, if that makes any sense. Like something that's not all the way into our world. Like it's trying to manifest itself. Like, so again, if it's interdimensional, maybe it's something we're only seeing glimpses of it as it's trying to enter our world or whatever, just passing through. Like, I don't know how to describe it other than the fact that it doesn't look natural. Like, it doesn't look like it should be here.
No, very, very similar. Like, if you're playing a video game online and you have really terrible internet and everything starts lagging, and like you kind of just like you see like the characters in front of you just kind of pause for a second, but then all of a sudden they rapidly speed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like that. And it was just like, again, a very solid color. I think when the first time I saw it come out from the side, it was more of like a black, kind of a very, very dark color. And the thing was, I wasn't the only person on the road when I saw this. Like, there was another vehicle coming towards me, and I wish I would have stopped that person just to ask them if they had saw that too, because after I saw it run up to the road, just flailing around and everything. It then immediately darted back. And then just a few moments later, it was even closer to me, still on my side of the road. And again, from the side, it ran out. And, I looked at where it was at this point, and then that was probably a good 50-yard difference from those two locations. And again, black, you kind of like a black mass looking thing. And then it went back in. And then once this orange Jeep passed, it came out for a third time, but now more of a gray color and not so much black. And once it got to the road, it started running down the road towards my direction just after this Jeep passed me. And I'm like, dude, what the heck? And I see it running, and then I see it slow down in front of these people's house. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna be able to see what this is now, because I'm getting real close on it. And as I started coming in, I just watched it turn completely phased out. So like, if that is another example of something that's, being interdimensional, it really makes you wonder what that is, and what's causing it to now manifest into our plane of existence. Because, what are we here? Is this some type of parallel, universe, plane, whatever, that just so happens to coincide on the same physical plane? Just, again, like another light spectrum that we just can't see, but then what's causing it to then come out? And I know, like, a lot of paranormal investigators always talk about, the veil, and how, during certain times of the year, the veil kind of gets thinner, causing, ghosts and spirits and whatnot to be able to manifest more. And I know I've been hearing a lot, like, especially over like the last year or two, that the veil is, a lot thinner now than it ever has been. And maybe that is a possible reason as to why these things are now happening more often. I don't know.
The whole veil thing. What is the veil? Like, I know the term, but I'm saying, like, when people say that, I've always wondered, like, so what is the veil? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, as in, like, oh, there has to be something if it's the veil's getting thinner. So what they're describing is there's like some sort of energy that hides another plane of existence. So when someone says that term, it's more mind boggling for me to try and comprehend, like, a rational explanation of how to explain what a veil would be. My thought process would be, when something like this is happening, there's more of a conspiracy going around of why we are experiencing more activity. And a lot of that has to do with CERN and some other things. They think that they've unlocked some sort of like doorway, allowing these different energies and different beings and whatever to come flow through here because of something they've done, like the Mandela effects that people experience and all sorts of things. Like, we've changed something. I don't know if I buy into that, but that's what people are claiming, why things seem more weirder now than what they used to, because things have been different. Like, when you go down the whole Mandela effect, I know it's completely off topic, but like, there are specific things that I remember that aren't what I remember, supposedly. One of them being the Fruit of the Loom thing. I know for a fact my underwear as a kid used to have those little fucking cornucopias on there. And they're saying that those things didn't exist. Like, there's photos of people that like drew things, this and that, from like, they had it, but like, it never existed. It's like someone's going back and changing small little pointless little things of history. So what reset the clock? Like, what reset that? What has opened up to the things that are different from what people are remembering? And I know people explain away the Mandela effect, but there are a lot of things that you can't explain. Like the monocle for the Monopoly guy.
Yep.
The one thing that I can relate to, they're like, oh, you can't find the monocle for Monopoly. Do you remember the movie Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls?
Yes.
When he punches that guy, the guy has a monocle. And he's like, oh, you must be the Monopoly guy. And he picks him up, throws him over
Yep.
his. Why would they have a monocle on that guy if it didn't have one either? So why would a movie make a reference to Monopoly if it didn't have a monocle on his eyeball either? So
Right. Exactly, dude. Exactly. Yeah, dude, that's a whole entire rabbit hole in itself for sure. And like, I mean, yeah, you can jump into CERN, all the different things that's going on. I mean, we, last year, I think it was, yeah, we had that thing where the Schumann resonance all of a sudden just kind of went haywire and created this double helix. And I know so many people were just completely floored by that. And like the different the spiritual people and stuff that I talk to and stuff, they think that there was that wasn't supposed to have been seen. And there's a lot of people I talk to that also kind of think that maybe we live in this type of matrix and that this isn't necessarily our true reality, in that a lot of things are changed visually for us, in that somehow, some way there was this slip up that caused this to happen, or might even been like the opposite way around. Like normally it's supposed to look like the double helix and everything, but for whatever reason something is always causing it to look the way it normally looks if you were to go and check out the Schumann resonance. But yeah, dude, a whole entire rabbit hole. Like, dude, I remember like my oldest daughter's mom, like they had like a horse, and I growing up, and like I remember at one point in time her saying that that the horse had finally died, this and that, and I'm like, oh dang, like that's crazy. Like, like, how do you guys have a horse? Like, what do you do like when you're you own horses and one of them dies? It's because it's such a big animal and everything. And it wasn't too long ago when my daughter was just like, oh yeah, the horse is still around and this and that. I was like, wait, what? I was like, I remember that thing dying, and now you're trying to tell me this thing's still alive, still running around kicking and stuff. Like, no, no, I clearly remember that, because like I made a joke about I was like, well, at least you guys will have a bunch of horse meat now, and this and that, just joking. Like, obviously they're not going to do that, but it was still kind of like a funny joke, and I made the joke, and for it to now just like, yeah, that was never a thing, that didn't happen. I'm calling BS on that, bro.
I remember seeing a commercial for that Sinbad movie that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid, like, I've honestly, before I've ever even heard about the Mandela effect, I've actually thought about that before too. Like, I remember I was watching like TV or cartoons or whatever, and like this commercial came on for Shazam or whatever it was called. And
yeah, it was Shazam.
Sinbad had like the 90s high top haircut, and he was wearing almost looked like a tracksuit, and he was walking down this road. It was dark, and he was walking with another guy, and his tracksuit was like gold and shiny looking. And I remember he was supposed to be like a genie, and I remember the commercial for like it was supposed to be coming out or whatever. I never saw the movie, but I remember seeing the commercial, and for some reason, within the last like 10 years, when they started talking about Mandela effect stuff, I was like, what? So I've got online, I was like, that doesn't exist. I remember seeing a commercial about it. It's random stuff. Like, how would I have a memory of seeing something that never existed? Like,
right, exactly.
It's weird. So I don't, like I said, I don't know if it's almost
There's
like
you're good, go.
I was gonna say, I don't know if it's like a butterfly effect thing, like where something has happened and maybe that one little incident, like they came back, tried to fix something, and it's starting to like offshoot random little things here and there. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, they came back and they ran over a bug. Well, that bug ended up having some sort of disease that was supposed to kill this person, and well, it didn't kill that person. So now things have changed. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I've never thought about it that way, but that is an extremely interesting thought. I don't know why I've never even thought about it that way, but I mean, that would kind of, if you were going with the butterfly effect, that would make a lot of sense with things. And, something else I was kind of, pondering in my head not too long ago was like, all these ancient civilizations that had depicted different types of aliens, UFO, stuff like that. What if these things, these beings that they were seeing that came down and stuff, what if that wasn't aliens? What if that was us
from
the future
Mm-hmm.
that have figured out how to, travel backwards through time? And now we at some point decided, well, we're going to go back to the days of Mesopotamia, the Egyptians and the Aztecs and the Mayans and all these things. So we're going to come in and we're going to try to give them this advanced knowledge then, so we can, have all this technology now and all this stuff that's, now going on. So it's like, that came into my head the other night, and I was like, dude, I'm not going to be able to go to sleep after this one. Like, I'm going to be thinking about this crap way too hard.
Anymore, I don't even try and figure it out, because I don't think we're ever going to find out the true answers. That's the downfall, I feel like, of when you do a show like this, because you want to seek the answers, you want to find out the truth, but the truth of the matter is, I don't think we're ever going to find out the whole truth, and that sucks.
Dude, you're absolutely right on that.
Like, not to be discouraging or disheartening to anyone out there that listens, but like, I know that's what we all listen for. We like to be entertained. We like to think about the unexplainable. But that's the reason it's unexplainable, is because no one has the answers, and it's hard for anyone to comprehend a lot of the stuff that goes on to come up with a definitive answer. And I don't think we're supposed to know all the answers. So
right,
it becomes discouraging.
Kind of like that here recently, where there was that guy that said that he saw like a Bigfoot or whatever come out of a rock door, or was that over like Oregon or something like that?
Like the portal opened up?
It wasn't like a portal. It was like an actual rock face that sits on the side of this mountain, and it's all over TikTok, where a bunch of people like knew where the location was after seeing it, and a bunch of people were going there and trying to figure out if like this rock face actually did hinge inward to where it would open up, because the report was that this guy saw Bigfoot open this kind of rock door, and then he went inside this cave and then closed the door behind him, and there was like a people and all that jazz. I think there was like a few people that went out there later on with some drones and tried to fly the drones around and stuff. Like, it was like for a hot minute there, all over social media, and then that just kind of fell off, and I haven't really seen or heard anything about that. But it was just like, yeah, it got so big, everybody wanted to find answers, so many people were out there, and then like it started getting to the point where the people that were posting videos about this location, while they're recording, you can see that there are so many other people who are also there trying to do the same thing, trying to find these answers. And again, yeah, we probably will never ever get them. I'd be on like the right track of things and maybe have some pretty good solid assumptions on how some of this stuff works, and who knows, there could be one of us out there who is completely right on how it works. But again, we have no way that we can prove it, or at least to our knowledge. Now, that's not saying that there isn't government entities that, have been able to figure something out that we don't. Again, goes back to, CERN, stuff that they're doing. It wasn't until CERN came around that we even discovered the Higgs boson part.
Yeah. And that's where I kind of go back to with this whole interdimensional thing. I believe it was the 90s, and someone had called in to Coast, and they talked. I don't remember if it was faked or whatever came about it, but I remember hearing the recording. It was, I think there's a band that has that as like one of the last songs on their thing. I think it's Within Destruction. They have that call about them not being aliens. They're not what they said they were. They're interdimensional beings. And
Yep, what was his name? Art something
Bell.
or another. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. There was a few metal bands back in our era that they used that sound clip, and I remember one of them because I remember it was I had the album that it was on, and I played it quite often, and I always remember when that song came on, just like listening to that, it's so creepy, and it's just like, if it was faked, okay, but like sometimes you can just kind of, to me, it sounded like that man had legitimately in his voice, like he was straight up scared of what he saw. And I mean, shit, you can talk about Bob Lazar all day long, the stuff that he came out and started, telling everybody and this and that. And I think that his ass got super scared, because I think that he realized that the stuff that he was saying was going to cause him to get murked real quick. So he was like, well, I need to go real public with this and come out so people can see my face. So if something does happen, all of a sudden I drop off the face of the earth, or, all of a sudden I've somehow hung myself. That's not me. I didn't do that. And, it just, it makes you wonder what's going on behind scenes that we don't know about. And then, we got all this crap going down in Antarctica, and that dude that was all over the internet and stuff, that was talking about the things that he had seen, like he down there, these ice neutrino detectors. Like, I had to look up like what the heck a neutrino detector even was, and I'm just like, I'm just kind of like, this is all weird stuff. And there's stuff there, man. Like, we'll never know what it is unless you have some type of clearance to things, be way beyond everybody else's pay grade, that you'll probably never know any of the answers, and that truly does suck.
I don't think there's anyone out there that has all the answers in general. I think they might have some, but I still think that we're going to be left in the dark. I don't think everyone has a real grasp of what's going on. I know the governments of the world and their powers, there's all sorts of extra information that they hide from everybody. But I don't think they have all of the truth. I think they have what they want. Obviously, Bob Lazar, I've always thought he was being honest. I know he gets discredited a lot, but here's the thing that most people don't want to accept. They're like, oh, he has no records of anything. That's convenient. They erased everything. So he says, they didn't erase the newspaper clipping of where he made the rocket on his vehicle.
Right?
That was the one thing from a local newspaper that didn't get erased. So it kind of proves that the dude knew how to build rockets, and it had his name and where he was from. Like, from, I think it was.
Exactly.
That never gets brought up. I don't know if that's like something that people just tend to overlook, or, but why would he be on, I don't remember if it was Los Alamos or wherever hell he built the rocket at, but he built the rocket for his vehicle.
In his garage, dude. In his garage.
And even today, like, he still works as a chemist. Like, I'm pretty sure he still works in pharmacy and stuff like that too. So obviously he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he has a lab. I would say, what is that? Was that Arizona or Nevada or wherever it was? Yeah. Because there was I believe it was on Netflix, a documentary that a guy made, and had interviewed Bob, and like was talking about different things, and like one of them was that he supposedly stole a type of element
Element
that was
115.
on. Yeah, and it's not like even on the periodic table or anything. And that's pretty crazy. And it's like, while he's, filming that with this guy and they're talking about that, then all of a sudden FBI shows up to his lab and raids his lab and stuff. And it's like,
Now they've actually proved that it does exist too. Within the last like so many years, element 115, everything Bob said in the 80s is now an existing element, which is kind of convenient.
Really? I haven't heard that.
Yeah. It just further proves to me that Bob was being honest about it, because element 115 is now an existing element. And this, the way things went down with Bob, like, and I'm pretty sure there was a phone book out there that still had like a number for him to prove that he lived out there. So,
oh, dang.
There's just little bits and pieces that people have had that they can prove that he at least did exist. Like, he's not some just fake guy that come out here and made up these stories to become famous. Like, he legitimately did build a rocket on his car. This and that. Now, the stuff that he says happened to him and the stuff that he saw, we'll never know if that's true or not. I don't see why he would make it up. Like, he never gained anything financially for it. Like, he didn't go off into these conventions and talk all the time about it. Like, he became pretty reclusive, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah,
what was the point of saying any of that if he had to go and like ruin his life? Why'd they ruin his life? Why'd they delete everything if it wasn't true? You know what I mean?
Right. Completely, cut out that he got a college education, that he went to whatever college that it was and studied all these things. Yeah, they went as far as like having like the professors and stuff like, oh, I don't ever remember him being here. I never saw him here one single time. And yeah, it's like, why go so far into, hiding these things and trying to erase all this to discredit somebody? If you're going to go as far as something like that to discredit somebody, then clearly what they know is something that is credible, and that, and that right there. And just like, so I have a relative that retired from NASA, and I wanted him to come on the show because like I wanted to, pick his brain about different things, because he had started off as a meteorologist, and he goes from being a meteorologist to being a rocket engineer. And it wasn't until here recently, I mean, obviously since I started doing the show, that I'm just like, hold on a second. How do you jump from being a meteorologist to a rocket scientist? Like, how? Well,
pretty big difference.
That's a huge difference. Like, and the thing is, like, I even went as far as, doing a little Google search like on him, and I'm finding stuff that his name is on, doing different types of experiments in these in different locations across the globe. And then like what's even funnier is some of these locations are well known for having strange activity going on, especially in the sky. Mount Shasta being one of them. Anyone who, has ever done any type of deep dive onto the stuff that happens at Mount Shasta, missing 411, stuff like that. All these people have gone missing out there very, very strangely. But yet he was doing weather experiments out there over the years. And then all of a sudden he's now a rocket scientist, and he retired from there being a rocket scientist. And like, when I asked him to come on the show and stuff, he straight up told me, he was like, I can't, I know too much sensitive information. I cannot do it. And, I wish you the best of luck, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just like, what sensitive information? Like, okay, either A, of technology that we don't know about, which could be highly plausible, or there's other things otherworldly that you are, privy to that information, and you can't speak about that. So another thing he kind of made a little hint to, because my mom, and both my parents, they're really big into different like this is and they were watching this the Skinwalker Range, and my mom was like, "Hey, I got a question for you. What do you think this is about?" And she was talking to him about the there was the one episode where they were kind of like on the rock ridge line there, and they were in like maybe kind of like I wouldn't say like a cave, but kind of like a little alcove kind of deal, but they were getting these strange energetic spikes coming from these different rocks and stuff. And she was like, "What do you think that is?" And he goes, "Well, I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you we know what it is." And that was all that. And these guys are out there trying to, desperately figure out why these rocks and these stones and stuff are producing these, I believe it's like electromagnetic fields and whatnot. And I mean, I'm somebody that's really big into crystals and things like that. And like, I'm a pretty spiritual person, and I like the, all the woo-woo stuff. And like, I know from the things that I do personally that there is something to it. There is energetic fields that do exist, that we can't see, and I can't explain why they happen. But like, I'm a certified healer, and if you don't know what Reiki is, it's essentially using the energy that we have around us to be able to heal things. And I'm in the process of doing more so I can transfer this stuff to people and being able to not for my fellow man, but I want to take the first step and do it for animals, just because I love animals a lot, man. It just like, I have a strong connection for, so I want to do that. But like, the things that I've learned from doing that, the different type of energetic hand techniques and stuff, I can't explain why some of these things work, but they do. And I know from the stuff that I've done, like, I done something, and I was able to make my cat react to what I was doing. And for the most part, he doesn't give a shit about what I'm doing, hardly at all. But the second I start doing these hand techniques, it doesn't matter where he is at. He comes. Like, I had just like called his name, and he's right up there. He's right there, and he's like stops and like he is staring at like what I'm doing. And like will bring like himself as close as he can, and even like touch my hands at some point before he walks away. So I did an experiment where I was like, okay, I'm going to create this energetic ball, and I'm going to push it towards him when he is not focusing his attention on me, because I didn't want it to be like, where, maybe we could debunk that, he's watching me, so he does something weird because he was watching me. So I just wanted to kind of make it to where I experimented trying this when he wasn't looking in my direction, wasn't paying attention to it at all. And I did, and I'm envisioning this ball of energy coming across the room. And I kid you not, man, the second that I envision this thing reaching him, my cat does a spin and then takes off out of the room, taking down the hall through the apartment, going all the way to the back bedroom, and then come running straight back out to the living room before stopping right in front of me and just kind of just like sitting there, just flicking his tail around. And I'm just like, oh, okay. I don't know what that was about, but we're just gonna go with it.
You mentioned your uncle or your cousin with NASA. I know there's people out there that listen to this that are they're not very big fans of NASA. Ironically, I told my buddy today that I came across something that someone posted about NASA, and it says NASA stands for not a space agency.
Yep.
And the big thing about NASA, and this goes into the whole flat Earth theory, they think they're covering up. They make, like, obviously the space shuttle, or not, but the space station. I see things all the time. I seen one the other day that actually did make me laugh. Like they were trying to look like they were floating, and other things were floating, but then there was like this little paper thing on the table, but it wasn't floating. But other things were floating, so why wouldn't the lighter thing, like the paper, be floating? Like that
Yep.
didn't make any sense. Like the people were like tethered up. They're like tethered so they didn't float away, but like a little sheet of paper wasn't floating at all. So I don't
Right.
know.
Exactly.
I don't know how that works. Like if it's barely any weight to it in space, does it not float? Like I don't understand how that works, but whatever. And I'm not a flat earther per se, but when you go down that rabbit hole, you do start to wonder a little bit because some of the things that are talked about, it does make you question certain things. And there's other, not even just that, but like, I feel like NASA itself faked the moon landing. And I've talked about
Oh
this
yeah.
on a previous episode. I don't know what the point was other than maybe it was to get up there and say, oh, we were the first that did it. But I always found it strange that we went up there a few times. And then I think it was like we went like 3 or 4 years that they were doing these missions, and all of a sudden they stopped going to the moon, and then they destroyed all the technology to get to the moon because they didn't want to fall into the wrong hands. What? Whose hands were this
Right.
going to fall into? So none of
And
that made any sense.
Supposedly the Japanese landed on,
Yeah, just recently, I think.
and I was like, huh, that's funny, because we've been saying for some time now that we couldn't go back to the moon because we couldn't cross that barrier of radiation. I can't remember what the heck they call it, but there's like that radiation belt that's up in the atmosphere that if we were try to go through, like it would kill us. Like the human body wouldn't be able to go through it. So it's like, if that's the case, then how did we get through before? And now, if we can't do it, how did the Japanese just put a man on dude?
How did they make the
why are
phone
we not
call
questioning that?
from the
Well,
moon?
yeah,
It was like a face,
exactly.
but you could see him talking on a phone to the president. Like how the camera, it was like they were FaceTiming back in 1969.
Right, no kidding, exactly. Like the internet wasn't even a thing at that point in time. Like we weren't able to. I don't feel like we were able to either. We had this technology, like internet, before we put out there that we had it, which I think a lot of people believe that, the technology that the government actually does have is so much more advanced than what we show. And, again, like either don't want it to fall into the wrong hands or whatever it may be. But yeah, how are you going to explain making that telephone call when that wouldn't have been possible? Because at that time, we were still running off a landline.
And how did it get streamed? Like who was filming it, and how did that film make it all the way to Earth? Did they bring a satellite that could shoot off the FaceTime video, basically? None of that made sense either. Like they were filming the moon landing, people watched it live. How are the cameras coming out? Because at that point, we didn't even really have satellites up there. Everything was going off TV antennas.
Right. Yeah, exactly, dude. Oh God, what was sitting there trying to think, something else that didn't make sense about it. Yeah, like I feel like we like film even, like, you watch stuff like literally, like, yeah, everything was essentially like hardwired to be able to, and yeah, so to sit there and say that, well, we were recording it and this and that, and like, Wasn't there like one of the scenes when like he was coming out, like the camera was already outside?
Yeah, the first step for man, there was already a camera guy out there recording him coming out of the thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And then like we already know that NASA does that crap where they do all this simulation stuff underwater, and it's green screens and WAS. And then we had that one where it showed one of the astronauts out on like the International Space Station, like trying to like repair something, and then all of a sudden you see a little mouse up in the corner, just like chilling, walking around, like what?
Yeah.
How is it breathing, bro?
There was a live feed years ago, and something strange came on the live feed, and they instantly disconnected the live feed. Back when they used to have like the NASA channel that was like all the time running on like cable or whatever satellite, and once something strange like came up on the video, the live stream completely just went dark. I was like, well, that's not convenient.
Yeah, no kidding.
But no, I even as a kid growing up, I was like, oh, we went to the moon. And the more I thought about it, I was like, how did they go to the moon? Because how'd they get off the moon? And that's where I still come back to that. We had to take a rocket to shoot ourselves into space to get away from Earth's gravity. But they landed on the moon and they didn't float away on the moon. So the moon clearly has gravity. They didn't have a rocket, but whatever this lander did had to be big enough to have a rover, which should still be up there somewhere. How did
Yeah,
that?
I didn't even think about that either. Like, yeah, that's not like they brought the rover back.
How did whatever they landed with, this little capsule thing, shoot itself off of that to get back into space to travel all the way back to Earth? Because
Right. It's like
they didn't have the rocket to do that. They had
no,
to take a rocket to get there. So how did they have the propulsion to get back to Earth?
because our gravity is so strong that once they detach from the ground, it pulled them back. It was like a yo.
There should be like a huge blown out area from where they had to launch themselves off the moon. You would think if they had to have rocket thrusters and everything just to get away from the moon. If they say the gravity's so light, that's bullshit, because if the gravity is that light that they could just float it off easier, then how are they walking? Why is it when they took steps that the dirt itself wasn't floating around? Like,
Yeah, that very, very true. Yeah, there's too many things about it that the math don't math. It doesn't make sense. There's no reason why this would not do the same kinds of things that we would expect. Obviously stepping on a ground and then having that gravelly surface and the dust kick under the steps and everything, and it's just like calm. And then on top of that, wasn't one of the flag. The flag wasn't it moving like as if there was wind, or was it maybe the flag was standing still or something? I can't remember which it was.
I've watched a lot of videos of that, and that's what cracks me up too. They claim it's in a vacuum, so it wouldn't really move. Well, okay, if it's in a vacuum, then how come there's other things that don't have the same physics as that flag does? Like the flag looks really weird, but it still could flop around. But again, even with that dust and then walking on the moon, it didn't behave the way the flag did. Like,
Right.
there's so many like things that make you scratch your head that it doesn't add up. And the fact that everything out there is completely black. There was no stars. Like if you look up in the sky right now, you see stars. If it's not cloudy, where anyone out there listening, if you look up in the sky and you can see stars, and you can see how bright the moon is, why wouldn't you be able to see more stars from the moon? And if they want to say, oh, we can only see them because of the atmosphere, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like maybe that's true, but like why would our atmosphere make it visible when you're not having anything to restrict you? You know what I'm saying? Like if they don't have an atmosphere on the moon, what would be restricting you from seeing the same light?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I've never thought of that.
Someone said that the sun is so bright up there, that's why everything was so bright, and the sun's brightness blocked out everything else. So it's like, Well, that still doesn't make any sense because you would still be able to look away from the sun. Like you're not staring at the sun. If you look differently, you would be, depending on where you're at on the moon. I don't even know what supposedly they landed on. And then the whole dark side of the moon theory. Like if we
I
really
mean,
went like what's on the back side of the moon, because conveniently the moon is always interlocked with the same rotation as the Earth, so you never see the other side of the moon. Like, well, that's awful convenient.
right. And, also it's funny because I know that, you can go outside tomorrow morning and when the sun is up, you're still, so it's like if we were sitting here trying to say that, well, the sun is so bright and it causes you to not see it and this and that. Okay. It's so bright that during the day we can't see the stars, but yet we can see the moon. Okay. Are we just going that based off of the proximity of, where the moon is to us. And that's why we can see it. But, but not anything else. Like, yeah, there's too many things that I don't know. It's just weird. They don't really add up in my head.
Yeah. That's the one topic for conspiracies that I think there is some line of truth. That and the 9/11 conspiracies are my two main ones that I was like, there's definitely some shady shit that when it comes to both of those that doesn't really add up. But I talked about that a lot on just the previous episode I recorded, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about the same thing again. But those are definitely the ones that get my feathers ruffled.
Oh yeah. And and I went for years, talking about, 9/11, it being an inside job and pointing things out to people. And I got so much hate over that.
Yep.
And so much anything that I had said when I'm just like, well, no, I mean, if you want to look at things from a scientific standpoint, there's too many things about this that do not make sense. And I mean, that whole topic in itself, it's just a gigantic, rabbit hole to dive down into. But, we now know that, a lot of these things that people that were saying are actually credible things. And, it's like, I feel like the general consensus now knows that, hey, this was a planned inside job. We knew everything about it, and government agenda to get us to do whatever it was. But I still remember to this day. I remember where I was sitting that day. I remember sitting in reading class when it came over their call that we need to turn the TVs on, and I remember watching the second plane hit the tower.
Why did we all have to have the TVs on? That was my senior year, and they made everyone turn the TVs on so we could watch this. And I was like, it's almost like they did it for us to have it embedded into our brains. Like everybody had to turn on a TV and watch what was happening. I get it. Yeah, it's something going on in the world. But did it really impact every single kid that they had to watch that? Like, yeah, a plane hit a tower. They didn't know what was going on. I remember watching it before the second plane had ever hit. It was only like a few minutes before, like maybe 15, 20 minutes before the second plane ever hit. They had us watching it on TV.
Yep, exactly.
It's like, and if you talk to other people, like you just did, like, oh yeah, I was in school. I remember exactly where I was at. That's one of those things that I think they wanted everyone to be at. Because also, conveniently, so was the president. He was in school too.
Right, he was at a school when an elementary school when he came in and gave him the word that there was this big attack and all this stuff.
And he kept on reading to the kids. He's reading out of a book to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then the same
plays
day,
it off all common cool.
Yeah, and the same day they were doing these fake military operations of hijacking drills and stuff like that. And one of the drills they were doing was planes were being hijacked and flown into buildings. So they didn't know that this was really going on. They thought it was fake. They thought it was just part of the drill trainings. I was like, oh, well, that seems pretty convenient. I don't really
Very
believe in
convenient.
coincidences. So that's
No, no,
if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
exactly, bro.
Well, getting close to that time, so we can probably get ready to wrap this up, but is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we do?
I can't think of any at the top of my head, dude. I mean, this has been an absolute blast. I'm glad that I was able to get the time to come on here and talk about a few things. I mean, we'll definitely have to do it again. I would love to pick your brain about all sorts of different little topics, kind of like this. This definitely been fun. You can go for so long about all the different stuff, and yeah, especially 9/11, all the things that had happened with that. It's crazy, man. But yeah, dude, I've had an absolute fun time doing this tonight, man. I appreciate getting the chance to come on the show.
Oh, hey, appreciate having you on here. You want to let the audience know one more time where they can check out your podcast?
The Big Grimmbowski podcast. You can come find your boy, Spotify, all the things. I got a link tree. You'll have that in the notes, so you guys will be able to come check it out. Come talk to me. Whatever your thoughts are. You wanna pick my brain with something. Hit me up. You want to come on the show? Hit me up. I'm always looking for new guests, this and that. I'm always trying to do different things, and I like to kind of keep it to where I call it a subnormal podcast, because it's not always going to be the same. Yeah, we might talk about conspiracies one day. We might talk about ghosts one day and Bigfoot one day, but I've got all these good plans of different things. I'm trying to get professional BMX riders to come on just to talk about, the days of, when we were kids, just riding bikes and skateboards and, just kind of how we grew up and just, shooting the shit with, because I feel like these days we don't actually sit down and talk with one another like we used to. I mean, you might go to a coffee shop, a donut shop, and they see like the old guys who were still sitting at the table every morning with their newspaper and their coffee, and they're just, they're talking and everything. And it's the art of conversation. And I'm trying to perfect that. So anybody who wants to come and have a conversation with me, I implore you to find me and hit me up, because I'm always down to clown.
That is definitely something that I do agree with, that the art of conversation has been lost, especially on the younger generations. We're like one of the last generations of people, at least here in America, that I've been seeing that really know how to have conversations. Anyone else is more or less, they're glued to the phone, which I admit I'm just as bad, but they don't want to talk, which I hate talking on a telephone. I always have.
Right.
Some people call me, want to talk forever. I was like, couldn't you just send me a text message? It's just so much
Right.
easier. Like, I don't have to
Oh, for
instantly,
sure.
like if I'm in the middle of doing something, it's easier to respond than have a hour-long conversation about something. So simple text works easier. But I do believe that's part of the reason, though, that we've lost the ability to have conversations with people. And I don't know how people are able to manage sometimes, because I feel bad for the newer generation with my kids and everything growing out there, is they don't have a way of communicating. Like, they have friends come over, they don't even speak. They're all just laying around on a phone.
Yeah.
Like, what are you guys doing? We're hanging out. I mean, you're all hanging out in a room on a cell phone, not doing anything. Like, you're not even talking to each other. You're talking to other people on your phones. Like, what? I don't get it. So.
Yeah. I don't either. And we were kind of like that last generation of kids that actually sat outside and played outside and did things outside. Like, yeah, we had some video games. We had the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, PlayStation, PS2. We saw all the different consoles come out. We were there for the birth of the internet, cell phones, even cordless, home phones. We saw all these different things of technology that came out, but yet we were still going out riding our bike down the road to our friend's house to hang out with them, running in the streets, all day and all night, just because, we could. And, this like the kids now, they definitely don't do that kind of stuff anymore. And it's a shame. And honestly, I try not to think about it, but like at the same time, like it truly scares me that, what the future holds for us when we get to the age where we're just like, in our 70s and 80s are getting to be decrepit and everything. And now we gotta trust that these guys are coming in clutch for us and making sure that we're Gucci. And I don't think it's gonna happen, bro. We're gonna be screwed.
Yeah, I don't know if we're even gonna make it that long. The way the world keeps going, I don't know if we're gonna see our 80s, because that's 40 more years for me. I don't know if the world's gonna be the same in 40 years.
Yeah, absolutely will not be, for sure.
Not to end on a negative note, but I feel like the world's just continuing to go the hell in a handbasket. So.
Definitely, dude.
Well, we can wrap this up, but again, I want to say thanks. So everyone out there listening, thanks to Shawn. Thanks for listening. Check out the Big Grimmbowski podcast, and we will check you out on the next one. Good night, everyone. Remember, the truth lies in the stories we share, the connections we make. Stay curious, stay open-minded. Thank you all for joining us on this journey, and until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep exploring the unknown. Good night, everyone.